Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast. This is episode 194 with my buddy Mitch. Mitch, I need the Backstreet Boys from you. Do you know the Backstreet Boys?
Uh, I like it that way. Is that one of the songs?
I maybe honestly don't know the songs, but Mitch, it's the same question that I ask literally every guest that we have. I need the Backstreet Boys from you. The who you are, the where you from, the what you did,
Oh,
and as long as you love me.
oh, that is one of the songs. Yeah, I remember that. Well, my name is Mitch. I go by Mitch 3D or the Mitch 22, and I put 3D printers on my back. Um, I've been to this last, I don't know, like last 6, 7 years. I've been doing it, all the rep festivals and Maker Faire, and now Open Source.
Yeah, you
So.
you've kind of gotten a reputation of being the backpack 3D printer guy. We're gonna
Yep.
get into why, but where are you located in the States?
I am now in the St. Louis area.
So can we expect to see you walking around with a backpack printer on your back throughout St. Louis?
No, no.
I'm sorry, it was too simple.
I haven't done it publicly, but it would be fun to go to if there was a local maker fair or science fair. I would totally be down to do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so can you talk about kind of what you do and what you did and how it got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So, if we're gonna go really back, I have been, I don't know, growing up playing with Lego
Hmm.
kits and the traditional like engineer background.
The same place a
But
lot of us makers gets our I
yeah,
like Lego.
yeah, you get the Tinker Toys or whatever those things were called,
Hmm.
the Erector sets.
Hmm.
But it really was the Robot Wars on PBS and
Yes.
all the old public access stuff that you watch that was like just fascinating to me. How it's made, Discovery Channel, Tech TV, like just being fascinated with technology and stuff. And so BattleBots, when that came on Comedy Central, that was like I was like, I'm gonna build a robot. So talked about it all the time. And then in high school, I was able to find a local club that did combat robots. And some of the people in that club that some of the members of that club actually were on the Comedy Central TV show. So I've been long friends with them as well. And so when it came to remaking the club in 2016 or so, or 2015, 2016, that's when we started again. And then I met Logan, and that's how I got on BattleBots. But the
Yeah, so
3D
you
printing,
were on the show
yeah,
BattleBots. Like for those that
yes.
don't know, Mitch. So and we're
Yeah,
not talking like little tiny like featherweight and ant
well,
weight.
those two, yeah.
We're talking big BattleBots that weigh quite a few pounds
Yep,
and can do some damage, right?
yep, 250 pounds. Yeah, the TV show
It's more
was
than I weigh.
it's on Discovery Channel. Yeah, it was on we're doing oh sorry, the seasons I was on was 2020 to 2021 and then 2021 to 2022. So two seasons basically. I was on that team. But we started back in 2019 when Logan bought the rights to the robot Sub-Zero.
Okay.
He bought the robot and then we completely rebuilt it from the original builder. But yeah, it has a name recognition as well. And it's a pneumatic robot, so I learned a lot about pneumatics, AN fittings, pressure the PSI, buffer tanks, valves, all that stuff. And so from that, on the second year, I ended up making a custom circuit board using a Raspberry Pi Pico that we could control the timing of the solenoids.
Cool. So
And
that
yeah,
explains why you did the cookie cat thing with pneumatics because you
yeah,
have a bit of a background in it.
it's essentially the same thing. Yeah, and then my last job too, we would rig up stuff with cheap pneumatic systems because it was. I mean, it's pneumatics are cool. Like I encourage people to play with them if you have access to that stuff.
Pneumatics are a lot of fun.
It
Um,
is.
I do want to give shout outs to people here in the
Yeah,
chat. If you
sure.
are watching, like, of course, but we got Tank Erden is here, Spurluck, Madcat USA, Max H. We've got Mike from Never Let the Machines Win. Tina Schultz is here. Duff, Maker Viking. Karen Chow Designs is here. David Connor Shover. We got, I say Sporluck earlier. If I did it, I'm saying it now. Miss Amber B is here. Maker Viking. Hey, dude. Steve Builds is here. Of course, when we are done, we're going to kick you all to go hang out with Steve.
Yeah.
And Chris Lane is here as well. So guys, leave a
I
like.
know all
if you
those
haven't.
people.
Yeah, these are all good people. We like them. You know, they're always.
I think
they're
I've met
always
most
fun.
of them in person.
That's the fun thing, man.
Yeah.
Like I only recently met Karen at Rocky Mountain, and she's been in our Discord server for a while as a supporter. So it's really cool to kind of see someone that I've just like watched their designs. I try to catch her Twitch lives when she's streaming.
Yep.
I'm
She
really
did my website too.
she
So
wait, she made your website?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. So she was one of the streams she did. Then helped set up my website on Google Sites. So it helped out a lot.
Yeah, makers helping makers. Gotta love that.
Yeah.
So you are obviously best known for the backpack printers, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm infamous.
How did this even come up? How did the idea of like, all right, so you know how we just could do regular 3D printing? I'm going to strap the damn thing to my back.
Yeah.
How?
Well, it was Murph 2017. I already had a CMC Eris, which is the little plastic Delta printer that CMC made. So it's CMC, they're based in Indiana. That's kind of why Murph is in
No, that's
in that
exactly
area.
why it is.
That's exactly
There's
what
no
it is.
reason to do an event
So
in Goshen,
CMC
Indiana.
used to be pretty involved in it.
Yeah, they
and
or they
then
used to be, yeah.
John Ollie used to work for them, and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So, but anyway, they released a small little printer called the Eris. It was like, I have it over there, but anyway, that was basically it was small and portable, and I used to take it to like I did like local comic cons, and we do like a panel on cosplay or something from the makerspace, local makerspace. And so I think I took it once to that and like print a little Pikachu, and it was cool to be able to exhibit, have a little small printer to exhibit and take it around with you.
Right.
But I had to carry it because it has a handle on it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to carry the laptop and the filament spool and all that stuff, and like printers are still like a durable mess of wires. And so I already knew because it was like a 12-volt. It just had a 12-volt plug. I was like, oh, I have some lead acid batteries I can plug in. That's pretty easy. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Well, so I did entertain the idea from the first Murph, kind of like ideas of things I can do for the next Murph, which is 2018. And so I kind of had the idea to do the mobile exhibit, and the original idea was that I don't like sitting behind the table because I've done that before at Maker
Dude, it
Fairs.
sucks to sit behind tables. You want to walk around and see people. So you're like, wait a minute, how do I combine both of these?
Yeah, how do I have like a conversation piece, or how do I talk about 3D printing while not being able to see the rest of the show, because you don't ever get to see the rest of the show, or you're usually traveling alone, so you don't even get somebody to trade off with on the table or something like that. So, back in 2014, I helped my friend Peter, who you probably know,
Sassaman, right?
Yeah. So we did a haptic feedback glove, which he's still working on, and it's pretty awesome. But that was back in 2014. We were demoing it, and it's true. It's like we had about 6 people on the table, so we were able to rotate and see everything at Bay Area Maker Faire. But yeah, like all the Bay Area Maker Fairs, like if you go to them, like it's so big. The campus that they're on is so big that you can't see everything. There's like physically impossible. Same thing happened with Open Source. There's not enough time, even if you could trade up with some of the other booths. People are complaining about getting stuck behind the booths. So anyway, that's how this originally started. So in 2018. About a month and a half before, I built this backpack printer It was plywood frame, so I had access to a CNC at my makerspace. I made a CNC plywood frame that basically just barely held on to the plastic Eris. Just I basically made some PLA clips. I used was it Protopasta's Hi-Fi Blue because
Oh
I
yeah,
loved
Joel's Blue.
that
Yep.
filament. Yeah, that
Yep.
filament. So it actually matched really well. And so I made it all blue themed, and it worked really. I used Octoprint on a Raspberry Pi Zero with a little webcam,
Freaking
and
old school.
I could hook it up to my phone hotspot and then see behind me and actually control the printer. But it didn't work too well. But the printer itself didn't work too well, which I ended up fixing later down the line. But what happened is around that time, Naomi Wu, Sexy Cyborg,
Mm-hmm.
she actually did the backpack Delta before I even had the thing built. So it kind of, I basically, yeah, I didn't copy her idea,
It
but I
sounds
have
like you
definitely,
copied Naomi
yeah,
Wu from what I pick it up here.
it doesn't matter. Uh, no, she did a great job with that video.
Yeah.
And she was actually just walking around Shenzhen with it, and you know, talking about 3D printing with people in public and stuff. So
That's
that
like
was a
one of the
great
big
video.
reasons to do something like that, right? Is to
Mhm.
bring that exposure and experience to 3D printing. But nowadays, it's not so valuable because it's
No.
become more of a mainstream thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you can go to your local micro center and buy multiple different
Oh
brands of
yeah.
3D printers. You
Yep.
know, assuming you have a micro center in your state. Soon for
Yep.
me. Soon. Little over
Yep.
a month. We get one in Miami.
It's a 30-minute drive. It's pretty awesome. Except for I can't go there without spending way too much
Oh
money.
yeah, no, we
But
we all need like real adult supervision
yeah.
for this. Yeah, you can't as a maker going to a micro center with a reasonably, decent credit card limit unattended is a bad move. It is a
It
bad
is
move.
a
I mean,
horrible idea.
it's fun, but it's one of those I'll never financially recover from this kind of experience. So, but it is if you've never been to a micro center, it's worth the journey if you're ever in the area of one.
Yep.
And yes, I'm sorry, Tina. Micro what? Not here in Ireland. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's
They're not available in a lot of places. I think it's mostly East Coast. Yeah. And then what's funny is because I used to work for Fry's Electronics, and they don't exist anymore.
no, they don't.
So most of the West Coast doesn't have like a good electronic retailer.
Well, there's micro centers in on the West
Yeah,
Coast.
parts of it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just saying it's not as popular as
No, it's
Fry's
not.
used to be.
It's my favorite thing when we
Yeah.
go to 3D Printtopia and Rocky Mountain. It's like I gotta go to Micro Center. Gotta go to Micro Center. Gotta go to Micro Center.
Yeah.
Because I'm actively looking to buy a laptop right now, and they have the best deals. Just I
Yeah.
have not
I mean,
found
the
better
computer I
deals.
have now. Actually, both Alienware computers I got were actually cheaper than you could get them from the Dell website. So yeah, that
Yeah, so
was.
Micro Center, you should sponsor us or
I know.
something. I
So
don't know.
we just talked about you for
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
50
we just
minutes.
gave you a
Yeah.
bunch of, free advertising or something. You should bring us out to the Miami Center and let us do a shopping spree.
Yeah. It's actually kind of cool because I got to talk to meet Jeff Geerling,
Oh,
who is
cool.
also a St. Louis creator,
Mhm.
and he was giving out the. I'm actually featuring on this video, his last video about open source, but he gave out Raspberry Pi Picos, and
In
so he was
in
just
a
giving them
Pez
out like
dispenser,
candy.
but it was a pies
Yeah,
dispenser.
that was
Yeah.
so cool. That was so much fun. That's a great project.
That is a great project.
And then Denise actually helped him out with that project. And then recently, I actually met up with Denise for the first time since, other than at the shows, because we always met up at the shows. I'm like, we live like 20 minutes away from each other. Like, how can we not ever meet up? But
Yep.
yeah, Denise is pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, it's kind of cool meeting local St. Louis people. But
It's
originally I'm
something
from
that's
Dallas, so it's like I already know people from the Dallas side, but there really isn't a lot of YouTube creators that I know of in the Dallas area. So
well, I think it's important that if you are a maker to try to find that community around you because having that one support network is great, but people that kind of understand the struggle, right? They feel that pain in a meaningful way and can help you through that. That can be very valuable. And certainly when you're building something like a 3D printer on a backpack, there's certainly some integration issues that you likely dealt with, and one of them being,
Mhm.
how the heck do you power it? With the 12-volt
Yeah,
systems, it was that's just a car battery. It's
yeah,
relatively simple, right? But now we're moving to 24-volt printers, so things are a little different.
yeah. So I've tried basically every battery chemistry,
Hmm.
um, and every battery package, I would say. So yeah, originally I just took a lead acid battery that I happen to have
Yeah.
from I don't remember, sealed lead acid. You don't want to use like actual car batteries because they could leak. But sealed
Well,
lead
that just
acid
adds to
batteries
the
are generally
fun, okay? Like that's,
yeah,
it's it's danger now. Now you're
yeah.
danger, Mitch.
Well, I've had a few people talk. I've talked to a few people. I think Emily in the UK, a couple other people, but yeah, basically you can do a car battery because that's the
Yeah.
cheapest. Most people are trying to dump them. You can recover them, usually trickle charging them or replace the fluids. It's a sulfuric acid, I think.
Hmm.
But
Yep,
anyway,
it is.
um, but yeah, like sealed lead acids are pretty cheap. They're mostly in all the UPSs out there. Um, a lot of them go bad, but they still have capacity. The biggest thing is current draw,
Hmm.
obviously. Not all batteries can handle the current draw of a printer,
Yep.
but with higher voltage comes less current. So, um,
But now
I'll
you,
give you an
instead of one
example.
car
Yeah,
battery, it's two car batteries
yeah. So
or
with
SLA.
without a heated bed, I have a kilowatt, one of those like
Yeah.
voltage wattage meters, and I think I was testing around 30 to 40 watts without a heated bed.
Well,
So
that's
like
totally
very low.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, very low. A few amps at 12 volts even. The Eris, which doesn't use more than like a few. I mean, it's yeah, that's the one on the Eris. So even on the bigger Delta, um, which is based on the H2 that I wore around, that one is still doing about maybe 50 watts even with a heated bed.
That's not bad.
Um, just to maintain the temperature. So
Yeah.
it's depending on how much heat loss you have. And I only ran the heated bed at like a low temperature, but honestly, for halfway through open sauce, I was running it cold, and I just put a bunch of glue stick on it. And so texture PEI with glue stick, and it was sticking with a. I didn't even need a brim. I just needed. I know the dragon I started printing, the articulated dragon, that started to come off, and I
And
think
that's
that
no
was partially
surprise. It's just a lot of
yeah.
small pieces.
That and also the bed leveling was bad because I broke part of it. But yeah,
This is why we
uh,
can't have nice things, Mitch. Come on.
yeah, that was one of so actually so when I got to open sauce, I I bought like the smallest travel case I could to get it
Hmm.
under 50 pounds to try to get it free on Southwest, right? And that's been the biggest. That's surprise. Ironically, that's been one of the bigger issues is just getting
Transportation.
the backpack printer places. So most
Yeah.
of the time, I drive to the Rep Rap festivals. I'm close enough that I can drive to Rocky Mountain 12 hours or so, and I've also driven to Earth, which is 15 hours. So it's like
It's a long drive.
being in St. Louis, I'm kind of central at places. But yeah, like it's still a factor of like when I drive places, I can just throw the backpack printer in the back seat and put a seatbelt on it, and it's fine. And honestly, like that's where you could just take it out of the car, put it on the table, do like one calibration,
Hmm.
auto calibration, and then it's ready to go. Basically, like that's how good it is. Packaging it though, I take the straps off. I usually take the spool holder off the top and all the other things that are added to it, and then I can
Yeah, you want
you
it
know
to be in a small physical environment as
yeah
possible.
yeah
And if it's easily removable, well, that can go into a different bag.
yeah. And then flying, you that's actually why I've gone with now drill batteries, so 20-volt drill batteries. So when I converted from 12 volts to 24 volts, back to battery chemistry though, I was using lithium polymers.
Little
So
dangerous.
RC car batteries,
Yeah.
yeah, they were pretty dangerous. They're 4S batteries. So I was running them actually. I had a regulator that went from like the 15 volts or 16 volts to the 12 volts
Hmm.
to run the original Aris, and that was I had it in a fanny pack with voltage regulators, and then I had those little battery alarms. So if the cell voltages got too low, it
It
would
would
beep.
yell at you.
And
Yeah.
so you'd hear, like, I'd be talking to somebody, you hear a really loud beep, and then you see me running back to my my thing, so I had to quickly change the battery. And I did run it in parallel so that I could swap.
You could hot
I could
swap
still
it.
hot swap the batteries. I didn't find out about diodes, like the use of the diodes, back until Tom Sandlander had a video about where he took a little printer bot
Mm-hmm.
and he put camera batteries on the back of it, and he showed that you can run all the batteries in parallel, but you use Schottky diodes, and those prevent the battery, like the lower voltage battery, getting
Yeah,
charged from the
from
higher voltage
feeding.
battery,
Yeah.
and you actually create like a ground loop basically, or a charge loop,
Mm-hmm.
which can be dangerous. So, basically every printer since then I've used Schottky diodes, like wired in parallel, and that's actually worked really well. And then most of the time I'll have some kind of voltage regulation to either go from a higher voltage to the lower voltage that the printer can handle. And then when I switched to, so I actually use like car jumper packs, like
Okay.
you jumpstart your
Yeah,
car.
yeah, yeah.
Those are like 18650s basically in a package. And so I did that one year. And then I switched to lithium iron phosphate.
Yep.
Bob recommended that, Bob Carnes. And so it's you can get them now. They're cheap. They're like less than $50 per pack. They're 12 volt.
They're way lighter
Yes,
than
they're
a regular
lighter.
like sealed lead acid battery, but they're
Correct.
also nowhere near as dangerous as the spicy pillows of lithium polymer.
Yes,
They're
and
not as energy dense, but
they have a built-in battery management system.
yeah,
So
yeah.
built into them, so you can't really over discharge them easily. And so I used that at just one cell per each, and then I made it so that I could plug in a main DC power supply when I'm setting them down on the table. I could start the print and then take it off, and it would go to the battery.
So like
And
all the
actually,
initial heating would be done by a DC power supply, so you're not like
correct. Yeah.
loading all... See, that's brilliant, and that's because of all the
Yeah.
Schottky stuff, right?
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, you just and actually I actually used the switch so that I could bypass the diode. Once
Oh.
you get it going, it actually allows you to use the switch. And then I had to figure out, I used a circuit simulator, online circuit simulator, so I could actually figure out how this stuff would work before I do it. Actually,
It's
is
the
a
right way
really
to do
good
it.
idea. If you're doing electronics and you want to learn, that's how I'm learning electronics, is just using a simulator and like, oh, maybe if I put the diode and switch in here, and it's real simple stuff. And so but then basically with the Rocky Mountain this year, Sliceworks reached out to me and provided me with the King Rune KP3S with their small, cheap, like cantilever bed slingers.
Yep.
Really, it's great printer for the price. Not as much now because of the A1 Mini, but still a cantilever bed slinger printer that's like 180 by 180.
Right.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
So I made with the Sliceworks filament, I was able to make this backpack printer, another backpack printer. This has been my third one. So I have the Aris, which is my
You have
little
like a
plastic
basement
one.
full of backpack printers.
I have a shelf, and the basement too. The basement actually is a whole nother story, but yeah. So the big one that you saw at Open Source and that's in that picture on the thumbnail, that one is my second one, and that was started. So after the 2018 Murph got interviewed by Tom Sandlander, that was like the highlight of that. I went to Bay Area Maker Faire in 2018 with that small Aris backpack. Great thing. But I found a lot of limitations. A lot of it was just that the printer itself was not that good. So CME CNC actually had the H2 kit, which is basically like they took the Rostock Max parts and made a small like hacker frame. They called it the Hacker 2 H2. So I took that, and then Matt from 713 Maker, he actually offered to make all the machine parts. So all those machined aluminum parts were made by him. He actually specialized in making aluminum parts for CME CNC machines. So
Okay.
and he does rail core and some other stuff. But yeah, that's why it looks so nice. It's because I had a lot of help from companies, and then E3D reached out to me, gave me one of the Revo kits, which was, I was sold on Revo. After that, I switched everything to Revos.
They are so convenient. They just are.
And then Jason from LDO was at was it Rocky Mountain last year or the year before that, or 2 years? But the first Rocky Mountain, I was like, hey, I like that orbiter, and he's like, here you go, put it on your printer. So I think it's becoming a advertising platform, which is pretty cool. I'm enjoying it.
You're a
It's really
walking
helped.
billboard.
Yeah, it's actually helped me. So like the Sliceworks one, right? So
Yeah.
I built the Sliceworks backpack, and that turned out really good because it allowed me to use that as a test platform for a 24-volt system,
Right.
a full enclosure.
Hmm.
So I had an enclosure around it. I was also Chris, who's on our Discord. He provided me with a military backpack frame called the Mole 2, and it's
Okay.
like a composite frame backpack with much better straps. The one I'm using on the Delta backpack, that one is Amazon Basics hiking backpack uh, frame, and I
Okay.
took the frame off and just took the straps, and then I reverse engineered the strap mounting locations and actually made my own frame that fits my back. And that was done. The frame itself was some scrap steel I had, and I actually had access to a water jet. So I made the frame with a water jet, and I had somebody weld it for me. And so that frame is super, super, super rigid. And on top of that, PLA has a really strong,
It's stronger
really
than most
stiff.
people give it credit for. It sucks with
Yeah.
heat. But
Yes.
PLA is crazy strong as like a
Yep.
base plastic.
Yep.
I love PLA. It just doesn't. It's like me. It doesn't do well in the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm grew up in Texas. I know. But yeah, the PLA actually is stiff enough that like that combined with the aluminum and the steel, I mean, that's why that frame works really well. Like that's why the
Yeah.
prints really work so well. It's the frame is not flexing at all when
Hmm.
I walk around. Like, and everybody asks, I think that's one of the most commented thing I've gotten and the most well besides why, that's the other one. They was like why? I'm like, why not? I
Because I
mean,
can. Why not?
yeah,
Like, why? One, people are paying me. Two,
yeah.
because I can. And if those
Yeah.
answers are not good enough for you, then you just don't get it.
I like the ones that talk about but my printer at home I can barely get it to print while it's on the desk. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you got to build your printers stiff. I mean, again, the good printers, look at the good printers behind you, like
Hmm.
steel frame or aluminum frame, like a metal frame
Yep.
that creates the stiffness
Yep.
that allows you to print like as long as the whole machine is moving in unison, you know, as long as it's not as long as the frame, the axes are not flexing against each other, you will have a stable print no matter what you do with it. Um, Same with, I mean, again, the Bamboo A1 minis, you can like basically hang them. Maker's Muse did one where he's suspending it from his ceiling. You know, Tom Sandler has also done that too, where he suspended the printer from his ceiling and showed that it really doesn't affect the print quality. So like I just think it's funny to me that people think that it's like actively stabilized. I'm like, no, because if it's actively stabilized, that would be really heavy and complicated.
Hmm.
If you had a gyro or something to actively stabilize it, or a steady cam, right? I thought about
Yep.
doing like a steady cam unit, but man, like that adds the weight. Like most of the weight would be the steady cam unit uh, system. So just building it really solid and heavy. But on the back, the problem with that is now it's a 35-pound weight on your back.
Yeah,
And
it's a little heavy. It's a
yeah,
little
and
heavy.
then weight distribution. I learned a lot about ergonomics of backpacks. So distributing on your hip, uh, the
Hmm.
waistband helps a lot, making sure it's distributed evenly, both side to side, but also moving all the weight towards the center of gravity. So the center of gravity of the battery and the printer and the frame and all the weight is actually closer to my back, so you have less cantilever forces when you're doing it. So there is some like a lot of it's just where it's packing efficiency is like where do I put this battery, where do I put this filament spool. Again, like I had it sticking out the back
Yep.
for the first couple iterations, and so um I went back to the horizontal spool holder, but then you have a horizontal spool holder with a lazy Susan bearing. Problem is the filament can actually unwind and get loose or wrap around itself. So how I solved that
Which it
problem is
loves to do, by the way.
yes. So with how I solved that problem is I just put some foam in the lazy Susan bearing to kind of create enough friction with the reverse Bowden as well, so that you don't it has enough tension that it could still retract and extrude, but also that it doesn't just like loosen as it's going around, or
Mhm.
as it's even when it's shaking, it will start to like loosen, right? So I try to make it stiff enough, but not enough that the extruder skips. So the extruders that I've had are been pretty good, like the Orbiter can actually pull its own weight basically. So I mean, it's enough that you don't want to have too much tension, but just enough tension that it doesn't
Right.
unwind itself. So it's like little details like that. It's also like, how do you quickly take the spool holder off of vertical or horizontal spool holder? Is I made a printed thread that you can like unscrew the whole center
Oh,
core part and then screw the whole center core back in,
that's
and it
convenient.
works really well. So like, it's just all the little details. It's like when you set it on the table, I have feet. I printed feet so that when I back up to the table, I can actually set it down flat, and it's not gonna pinch any cables or anything like that.
Mhm.
Not having any cables sticking out outside of my body area, so that you don't
Yeah, so
snag
you're not like
the
worrying
cable.
about if you're gonna run into things or snag things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even that open sauce from the picture, those bumpers were just like a last minute addition. It was like, I have in the past run into people, or just turning around, you don't
Mistakes
think about
happen.
it.
Yep.
Yep. And so the LEDs were, because open sauce, it seemed like you have to make everything flashy, kind of more flashier than normal. And so those LED neon strips I've actually already had for another project. And so I had just enough. I was like, I could make strips here, because I was thinking about making like a full enclosure, like a plexiglass enclosure for that
Okay.
Delta printer. But trying to bend acrylic that way
Kind of
didn't work
sucks.
too well.
Yeah.
So the compromise was the bumpers, and the bumpers protect the carriages because they're still V wheel
Oh,
carriages.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
The V wheels can get knocked out. They'll get knocked
yeah,
around.
yeah. So I
I didn't
I put
consider that.
bumpers
Yeah.
around that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Although I did break. So actually, because of the packaging was so sparse on my backpack printer, and airlines are not kind to 3D printers.
Anything.
You Yeah. They one of the parts was a injection molded nylon part that snapped. It was one of the V wheel parts had like a
Oh.
spring loaded contact. Anyway, it's not eccentric like a normal one has
Hmm.
eccentrics. This has like a injection molded like spring loaded roller. Anyway, so that one of those broke, and so I was walking around open source on Friday, setting up and trying to find somebody with an available printer. I talked to the Positron team, the Nomad, and physics and everybody else, and I had actually multiple iterations. I actually talked to the Micronics guys, and had them do one of my parts, but it took so long for them to actually get a batch printed
Yeah.
with SLS. But
SLS takes a minute.
that would have been cool if I got an actual Micronics print from them. But they had a really good demo. A couple other people, Steve, as on the chat, he's from Voron team. He actually
Hmm.
did one of my parts for me as well. But I was doing multiple iterations because I was trying to reverse engineer it at the show, so I didn't have much reference with the calipers, and I was in Fusion trying to model it. So I had like 3 versions of it, and then I had to put on a flash drive, walking around the event trying to get somebody to print the replacement
I
part
need
for me.
help. Print for me,
Yeah.
please. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you're surrounded by people that know 3D printing, and they also
Yeah.
know you, right? You
Oh, of
become a
course.
bit
Yeah.
of like a 3D printing lore here between
Yeah.
writing on the inside of a table at Murph to was it Murph, right?
Which
Right?
one?
When you rode in the table
Oh God.
at
Yeah, I forgot
Murph
about that.
to being the backpack printer guy.
Murph has some wild after parties if you ever get
They
to go to it.
all the conventions
Uh,
do.
yeah. Murph Murph actually has some fun parties too, and Earth has its own. Those are a little bit more civilized than the bar, but yeah, LobbyCon is always the funnest
Yeah,
ones.
Rocky Mountain has that
Yeah,
that hotel that is designed for
yeah,
the shenanigans that occur there, right? Like you don't have a bar inside of a hotel and not expect everybody to go to that bar, right?
yeah. That bar is pretty good. I have my own complaints about that kind of stuff,
Well, yeah.
but yeah, after parties, especially ones that are usually either sponsored, like at Earth, we had the one at the baseball stadium, is really
Hmm.
cool, and then that's more formal. But
Yeah.
that like those are that's where all the networking happens. That's where you make all the deals with the filament manufacturers or
That's right.
people, in the 3D printing community make deals with it. I mean, I think that's probably why printed solid is now Prusa. I'm imagining. I'm sure they were talking at those events. Who knows?
That I don't have
No room,
information on.
no rumors, but I'm just saying,
Um,
like that's the kind of connections that come about is usually talking at the show. So if you haven't been to a show, go to a show. I'm sure most of us in the chat has. But if
well,
you're
so
watching this,
you led me into something that nobody knows.
yeah,
But I can talk about it now. We are officially sponsored by Printed Solid.
that's
Um,
awesome.
and I have some filament to give away. I wasn't going
Oh,
to give it away on the podcast,
oh,
but
okay,
what the hell?
that's awesome.
Let's make that happen. So I'm
I
gonna
have
put a
quite a few printed solid spools actually.
yep.
One of my purple colors because the backpack printer is purple themed. Actually, my logo is purple themed. I try to do everything purple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, a couple of purple filaments I like. So this is the Purple Rain Green Gate filaments.
Okay.
It has like a cool color translucency. Um, and then the Purple Ice from Printed Solid. That is the kind of my go-to purple color.
Yeah, their
PLA.
purple ice is
Uh,
super slick. Like super
yeah,
slick. It's
a nice transparent one.
it's my favorite purple that we have cuz
Yeah.
there's not a lot of good of good filament colors in purple out there in my
No,
opinion.
and I have about like I don't know 5 or 6 of them. So Polymaker has a couple purples.
Mhm.
They're more of like a lavender color, a lighter purple color. So in like out of the dark purples, I think the purple ice is pretty good. Trying to think, yeah, Green Gay has a pretty good purple, and then Cookie Cat has they have Witchcraft, I think it's called. It's a pretty good purple. And then they have the ombre, the colors that transition from like purple, blue, pink. That's kind of their unicorn.
Well,
That one I like too.
I just pinned the
Yeah.
link in the YouTube chat. So if you're listening audio only,
Yeah,
I'm
go for
sorry, you're too late. So you got to watch these things live. Mitch, how many spools should we give away? How many are you thinking?
it. 2?
2? That's it? I was thinking like 5.
Oh my God.
I think
Okay.
5 spools sounds pretty awesome.
That's way more generous than most streams. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
think we should give away 5 spools. So we'll let that
Especially
roll
since
for a
you're
bit.
announcing it just now. Yeah, that's great.
I'm like I don't know if you know this, but I've been editing the form from the last giveaway that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One color I like is so they have a color matched Amiga color and then a
Oh.
Commodore color. So it's Tan 64
Oh, right,
and then I think the other one,
Amiga.
yeah, the Amiga 500. Yeah.
Why do I have a different name in my head for Amiga? Whatever. Yeah, but
yeah.
Dave, for those that don't know, Dave Randolph is a hardcore
Yeah.
like game and old school tech kind of guy. And often you get these cases that they're blown out. They're broken. They've got cracks in them and you want to fix it. Well, the colors don't exist, so he's like, well, I own a filament company, so I'm gonna make the colors.
Yeah. There's floppy disk emulators. You can build the little cases for them and stuff. There's a lot of overlap in the retro computing and 3D printing worlds. I know Bill Steele has also been to a bunch of them and some other people. So like I haven't been to like VCF, but if you actually are in the retro computing, the VCF Southwest and East, the System Source Computer Museum in Maryland, if you go to the IRF next to 3D Printopia, go to System Source Computer Museum. That was really fun. That was
Yeah.
they have some computers that you'll never see anywhere else. It's pretty cool. So, but yeah, I could geek about those too. So a lot of little interest, just like game console modding. It's just kind of like, you know.
So we're
one of
getting
those
some
things.
questions.
Yeah.
About
Yeah, sure.
about is it US only? It kind of. So I'm still working on what we can do for international. Right now, you have 2 options. You can either, if you win and you were international, well, I guess there's 3 options. You can A, give it to somebody else. So you can assign it to somebody else here in the States. B, you can pay the difference on the filament shipping. Or C, when we launch our merch store, I will send you a shirt for free. So that is those are currently the options if you are outside of the United States. We are trialing that out. We don't know if that's going to stick because it could end up being very expensive, right? I am covering the cost of the shirt. So that Printed Solid's not paying for any of that. That is because I want people outside the United States to have an opportunity to win something. So yeah, it is continental US, free spool of filament, no strings attached to that, free shipping as well. So yeah, we'll leave it open for another, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. I don't know. We'll close it randomly, and if you get in, you get in. If you don't, you don't. We are gonna start doing these on every single live stream. I was actually just gonna wait until Wednesdays to announce it, but screw it.
Wow.
You walked me right into that door, so I'm doing it today.
You can't do it without talking about filament, right? So
no, and huge thank you to Printed Solid for sponsoring us. We have a lot of filament to give away every single month, and I am very thankful for it. We have a small business that is made in America with USA labor that stands by their products, that has given us unilateral ability to film whatever the hell we want when we go there, and even just let us make our own filament. For those that don't know, when we made that elixir, it was not until the day prior that I knew that we were going to be making elixir. My understanding was that we were just going to be making our own custom color with Printed Solid, and that was it. But Dave before's like, hey, you want to make elixir instead? I'm like, yes, let's do that. And so we made elixir. That's exactly how that worked. Now, obviously, maybe this year we'll make a different color, but if you didn't see the news, Printed Solid is going to start manufacturing Prushiment as well. What that means for pricing, I don't know. I don't have any information on that. But yeah, that's gonna be a cool thing. So, thank you for letting me shout out the sponsor, Mitch. That worked perfectly.
I was just gonna say that we were there last Earth, right? We went out to Printed Solid, and
yep.
You were Courtney was like she was running around like at a candy store, and yeah, like we got to see the extrusion line, the newer extrusion line.
It's super cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they have. Let's just go with at least one more filament line running than when we saw them last time. So it should be fun this year. So yes, thank you to Printed Solid. We'll leave that open for a little bit longer. It is in the pinned comment. As you heard, it's Con US only for the filament. We can work it out if you're overseas. We'll figure it out when we draw. So we'll close the responses and we will draw it toward the end. And so you have to be here to win. So, anyways, Mitch, drill batteries.
Yes.
Drill batteries. So you went from lithium iron phosphate, right? Life PO4 batteries, eventually to the drill batteries. Now, my understanding was that the drill batteries were just because it's way easier to hot swap drill batteries, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, it's actually a couple of reasons why I did the drill batteries. First of all, they're available pretty much everywhere, hardware store wise.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
If you go to an event, you can generally go to a store,
mm-hmm.
buy a replacement battery if you need to, or if something happens to them or something like that.
Right.
The other thing is it's more accessible for other people to do the same thing, right?
So they wanted to make one.
Yeah. So instead of having to get them from Amazon, batteries from Amazon or eBay, you can just go out and buy a battery locally, and it's commercially available. So commercial off the shelf COTS, right?
Yep. We love COTS around here, right? There's a lot of value to being able to go to a regular hardware store, right? It doesn't need to be a specific one, but if your system can accept the batteries of pretty much any power tool out there and be adapted to fit any power tool out there, that's great. When we look at it, you chose a specific brand. Why? And what is your favorite power tool battery brand?
So I went this time with Harbor Freight, Bauer, the Bauer brand, mainly because they had a sale where you could get a free tool every time you get a battery and charger. So I decided that's the only reason I use drill batteries is that I'm already going to use them in tools. So you might as well have a battery that you can reuse. The lithium iron phosphates, after the shows, after the events, I don't do anything with them. I put them in storage mode, or I get them to a storage voltage, and they just sit there the whole time. So if I can use batteries, because they don't like just sitting
No,
most of the time.
they're not
Yeah.
happy about that, generally
And you
speaking.
don't want to discharge them, leave them discharged. So generally with tool batteries, you're just always having them either always on a charger, or they're ready to go, or you cycle them through your tool batteries. So that was another reason I did it. The other thing too is I was able to 3D print a very easy slot, adapter. And you can get adapters online. And a lot of because I was looking on Amazon and other places on resources for battery pinouts, the Bauer ones don't have first of all, they're cheap. They're
very cheap. It's Harbor Freight,
Yeah, and you can I think up until, well, I don't know if the sale's still on, but they had a 2-pack for two 5 amp hour 20-volt batteries for like $80 or something.
That's
like
not
that.
bad. That's not
they
bad.
were like basically half the cost of the equivalent like DeWalt or Ryobi. So I do have like the Milwaukee M12s as well, but the M18s, they have a custom protocol that you have to like emulate to make it work. So like, and some of them have built-in BMSs, some of them don't, and so the Bauer ones don't, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that I can just run them straight off the cells.
Yeah, you can run it. It is what it is. But the bad
Yeah.
side of it is you don't really have control over cell voltage.
You don't have cell balancing. So
yeah,
the cells themselves should be balanced pretty well from the factory, theoretically. So as long as you put using the official charger, the chargers have a balanced charging on them. The adapter I made, I actually reverse engineered the slot and the pins and made my own adapter for the backpack printers. And so I kind of used one of the guys on Printables that made a Bauer adapter. His is a good idea, but I kind of used his idea of using brass, like 1 millimeter thick brass parts. He actually took them out of a brass hinge and cut it with a Dremel or snips. I ended up using I just found brass plate, like a 1 millimeter brass plate, and from Amazon. I was able to actually use a non-ferrous miter saw blade and cut strips of it, and then I used the wire cutters. Actually worked pretty well to cut it, and then I used a file and just hand filed little pins. So I made my own little like brass strips and then glued them into slots in the plastic, and that actually worked really well. So there's different ways you could do it. I would recommend just going on Amazon and just buying the equivalent, like the adapter of your battery of choice. But unfortunately, Bauer is not as popular of a brand, so there's not really an adapter for that one. But yeah, Milwaukee M12 would be a good solution too. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think they're more available, more common. And Ryobi has a 18 volt as well, and I don't believe that. I think that one's pretty open. And then for the battery management, I have a 5S. So they're 5S. So it's 5 18650s in series.
Okay.
And then 2 in parallel, usually with the battery.
Yeah, 5S 2P.
So all of them have the similar like lithium ion cell voltages, and that's it. So when it says 20 volts or 18 volts, it's the nominal voltage is 18 volts. So it can go anywhere from like the lowest is like 15 volts total to like 20 volts total. So there's a pretty big voltage range, and that's why I use a boost converter. So that takes that nominal voltage and boosts it up to a 20, keeps it at a steady 24 volts,
which the printer's going to like. They can probably work down to 20 volts and up to 28 volts.
Yeah, I have ran a 12 volt printer off of 16 volts and it works fine. I ran a 24 volt printer off of 20 volts and it works fine. The biggest thing is the fans will not like being undervolted.
Yep, they'll just spin a lot slower.
Yeah, the fans won't do it. The heaters don't care. They will draw as much current as you can provide it, and so you're pulsing the heaters a certain amount of basically voltage at a single time. And so a lot of times they don't care. The only thing that might affect anything is the voltage regulators on the controller boards.
Yeah.
Can do like 5 volts. They usually break it down into a 5 volt and 3 volt.
They can
But
get kind of angry sometimes.
yeah, so you could technically run a printer anywhere between 12 and 24 volts, but your hot end is tuned to a certain resistance,
Right.
and your heater bed is tuned to a certain resistance, and so like it's not as clear cut as having exactly 12 volts and exactly 24 volts. So that does help in my case because I am changing voltages quite a bit, and so it's kind of electronics are kind of a magic, definitely a dark art, and
It is. And when
I
you
still don't
screw it up,
understand them.
you get the smoke.
Yeah,
Have you ever let a little bit of the magic smoke out?
I'm gonna knock on wood. No, I've been pretty safe with batteries. Obviously, I keep them within their current range. All the batteries are fused. That's one thing I have always done.
Always got to
I've
have the fuses. Yep.
fuse your batteries as close to the battery source. Have a fuse per battery.
Yeah.
And the printer boards, all the good printer boards have built-in replaceable blade fuses.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
fuses are a big one, and then the Schottky diodes. They drop a little bit of voltage, so you get a little bit of power loss on the diodes, but they protect the battery. The other thing I did, because I didn't have a battery management for the drill batteries, is a lot of the stuff I'm doing is really similar to the people that modify Power Wheels cars, their kids' Power Wheels cars.
Yeah.
To run off a drill battery.
That's actually exactly what you're doing. Damn it, I didn't even think about that. You're just using the drill batteries like they do.
Essentially, yeah. So if you look at like how they do, how people are modifying their kids' Power Wheels to run off of drill batteries, essentially it's the same thing. So they're basically an adapter that goes to a fuse, and then it usually goes to some power converter that can convert it to the voltage that the motors need. And so and they handle enough current. So everything I've been using can handle up to like 10 amps or so, which is plenty in 24 volts. But one of the things I found on the Amazon search was a relay that you program the voltage, the lowest voltage that the batteries can handle, and if it gets to that voltage, it'll remove the load with the relay. So
that's nice.
You can't damage the battery. It'll just shut off.
You just have to be careful that both of your batteries don't hit that voltage at the exact same time, because then your printer shuts off.
They kind of do, and yes, it will do that. But I've with two drill batteries in parallel, 5 amp hour. That's 10 amp hours at 24 volts. That's almost 200 watt hours. So I'm basically without a heated bed.
Well, that's 240 watt hours, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it isn't. Each one is 90. If they're 93 watt hours per battery. Yeah.
Oh, because they can't go to 0 volts. Right. Yes. Got it. You're right.
And so
carry on.
Yeah. But anyway, it's roughly 200 watt hours. But I can get a lot of it's empirical testing. So I will just start a print and have it run a print, and I basically had it going, and then I was like
at home, right?
Yeah, at home. Okay. That's a lot of parts of the backpack printer. It's just testing to make sure that I can first of all have a print that can last the length of the battery, or I can hot swap the battery, and so I know what time I have to do it. So at the show, because those little battery monitors have a voltage readout on them, I just had people read the voltages.
Hey, what's my voltage at?
Yeah, but the SliceWorks one actually had a voltage readout, so I could look at the battery voltage. So
we need like a little squid of cables coming down your arm, so you have like a wrist mounted, thing to control it.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid. On backpack printers, one of my kind of rules that I found out is that I don't like anything around my waist or around my arms, because it's just annoying having cables or anything like that. So the LCD screen that controls the printer is like right here, hanging here. But on the SliceWorks one, I didn't have any control. It was all just on the back. And the batteries are also mounted to the frame, because I don't like having cables around me, right? If I can help it. So the whole thing is one contained unit. Like I could set it on a desk and run it just like I could run it on my back.
And then other people can wear it too.
Correct. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Yeah. It's not special. You don't have to worry about people yanking cables or grabbing cables. You don't want anything sticking out the sides.
Yep.
So making it as compact and narrow as possible. That's why the Delta printer works so well. But yeah, that's one of the things, my design things is just making it clean, cable sleeving everything, making
Hmm.
sure there's nothing like hide all the cables that aren't useful and seen. So all the electronics are kind of hidden in the back. But yeah, also being able to have the voltage readout. One thing I did with the Dice 2 is that the Delta printer, originally what I would do is the Duet controllers have voltage readouts, and
Yeah.
so I have a macro that basically runs every minute, and it will pop up on the screen. Your incoming voltage is 24 volts or 24 volts or something like that. So I also have a voltage readout for the printer itself on top of the battery voltages. So
That's
um,
convenient as hell. Like
yeah,
that is ultra convenient. And what about with these new like MQTT screens and stuff, like
yeah,
the new Clipper screen from Big Tree Tech? Could you viably do something like that? I mean, I guess you'd also have to
yeah.
have your own local network. But then
Well,
so John Stern was
that,
saying like a Pip Boy. You could make
yeah,
yourself a wireless Pip Boy that could. I'm just saying. I know I'm feature creeping the hell out of it right now. I,
yeah.
I know I'm doing
Well,
that, but it's
I've
my
thought
show.
of,
I can do what I want. That would be
and
cool.
that's what's cool about having a bunch of iterations of the same backpack. I mean, of multiple backpack printers. I'm
Yeah.
experimenting, right? And what's cool is I've now had recently, I forgot, it's Carlos 3D.
Oh, the
And
one that just did the
yeah,
Prusa one.
yeah, he just did a Prusa Mini, and
Let me
he's
see.
using the batteries, and he also made his own enclosed backpack frame. Miguel from he's up in the Portland, Seattle area, Pacific Northwest. He's been at LTX,
Yeah, it's
and we met
Carlos
up.
3D. Carlos 3D
Yeah,
print on Twitter.
yeah, and then Miguel, he actually works for Autodesk. I found out, but he was at Rocky Mountain Rocky Mountain Repro Festival, and he actually built his backpack printer Voron. He has a Voron V0 on a hiking backpack frame.
Nice.
He was using similar lithium iron phosphate batteries as I was, so we actually were able to help each other fix each other's printers. And then we all walked around with my SliceWorks backpack, the Delta printer, and that was at Rocky Mountain. So, and he actually built his as a Death Stranding cosplay, and that's why it's orange. I guess I never played the game, but
Neither have I. I'm
he
sorry.
he built it. He built it without knowing of my backpack printer.
Okay.
So he actually built his independently of mine. I mean, this goes back into like 2010, 2012 or something. Somebody had an Ultimaker strapped to their back. That was
Okay.
like one of the first the instances I've ever seen of a backpack printer. So, and then Naomi Wu, but like the fact that I've been doing it so long, I've figured out all the tricks. And so the next iteration is what I'm working on. Actually working with Positron. That's spoiler alert. That's my next backpack printer is a Positron. So I'll be posting more about that. But
Well, wait.
I'm gonna try.
Can the
Yeah,
bag?
yeah,
Can the whole backpack be on a lazy Susan so you can rotate it the correct orientation?
yeah. We're talking about that. I don't want to do a 3-axis gimbal yet because that is kind of bulky.
Yo, yeah, yeah.
Going back to the camera rig kind of setup,
I've got one here, by the
yeah,
way, like one
but
that
you
can
know how
do
hard that would be to like
15 or 20
carry.
kilos. Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's so it's a
it adds
fly
bulk to it
cam,
on top of it. Yeah,
I think is what I have, and like it's a chest mounted rig with the arm,
yeah.
and like I've wanted to use it at shows, but it
You can
needs
put
its
a printer
own
on it.
separate bag,
Well,
basically.
that's the thing is the
Yeah.
positron. I can fold it up and carry it on the plane. That's the whole point of the positron.
Well, now
And
the
so,
backpack is the big problem.
well, so that's why I would probably go back to still rigidly mounting it because that's to me it's easier,
Hmm.
and also I can make a backpack frame that folds up or fits in luggage or fits in another carry-on case. Like I could actually carry on the whole backpack printer rig. That would be great
That
with
would
the
be super
batteries.
cool.
Yeah. And so so more for the portable printing side of it, not the backpack printing side of it, is I'm looking at I've already prototyped it, but I'm working on a microcontroller that will monitor the batteries
Hmm.
and allow us to switch between power sources, automatically detect how much voltage we have, how long we have to print. And on top of that, what you're talking MQTT is having a microcontroller that can feed back battery information, power information to Clipper or Duet or Marlin, where you could have either discrete outputs to tell the printer to pause, stop, based on the power. Big Tree Tech already has a UPS module that will actually pause if
it's just a super cap.
It's super cap. Yeah, there's actually just regular capacitors. So I'm looking at doing something similar, but I want one with a microcontroller that I can program battery voltages, thresholds.
That would be super cool.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at now, and so I'm thinking about more for people that want to have print farms that want UPSs that are more efficient.
I would love
don't take up as much space.
Yeah, I mean that.
So
that would be
all your
super
Pruses
cool.
All your Pruses are 24 volts, right?
Mm-hmm. Even the XL's 24 volts.
Yeah, the XL's 24 volts. It draws a lot of current, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it draws like 800 watts.
Some printers use AC heated beds, so I would have to compensate for that. But basically, it would be a DC UPS module. So it would allow you to use a drill battery or some common lithium battery at 24 volts or 2 batteries in series, and allow you to switch between your mains power source, your DC power source, or your battery. And it could do it fast enough, hopefully, that it would not interrupt the print. And then you don't have to worry about like an APC UPS, which has to currently what they have to do is they have to take AC power going in, convert it back down to DC to trickle charge the batteries, and then converts it back to AC, or it's pass through. And then you're going from a DC power supply, which is AC, going back to DC. So you're converting the power 5 times until you get to the printer power supply, and so it's not as efficient.
Oh yeah, and every one of those is like at best like 93% efficient, right? At best. So most of them are somewhere in like the low 80s. So you're losing to heat, you're losing to inefficiency, you're losing to noise. Yeah.
And it's running constantly. And so if you could have a DC power supply UPS, you could just have it always running off of your DC power supply, which is whatever the efficiency of your power supply is, converted directly to most of the time it's converted directly to heat on the printer. And then if you then you have failover, and you can also do it where you just have the 5 volts to power the mains boards, and then not have the 24 volts of the controller.
Yes, the heaters just shut off, and then
so there's a lot of ways you can do it. But if you use ESP32 or I'm going to be using a Pi Pico with Wi-Fi or whatever, that you can also have Wi-Fi notifications if your power drops. You can also have it send CAN bus data, or you could have it run Clipper extender, whatever that. Yeah, so like Clipper allows you to run extended I/O that's beyond the Clipper control board.
Right.
Clipper is a whole episode you could go on, I'm sure.
No, it's not, because I don't know a damn thing about it. I would need like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I am still a Clipper moron. I still don't know what I'm doing with it. I would love to have a Clipper dev on here, but I feel like I would just be kind of just nodding my head the whole time because I have no idea what's going on.
Obviously, Chris is our kind of resident Clipper guy, but
he wasn't. He came into our server not knowing a damn thing about Clipper, Clipperized a machine, built a Voron, and now he's like the Clipper guy.
That's how I learned. That CMC Eris was sitting there collecting dust after I made it into a backpack printer, and I was like, this thing is cool. It's fun. I had sentimental value of this little tiny delta that got me into this whole thing, and so I Clipperized it. And so now I have on printables, I have a whole kit of like parts and configs and stuff to convert this little delta into it. And on top of that, I talked to Steve from CMC and even re-released the Eris as a DIY kit.
Nice.
So I convinced him to actually create to use the old injection molded parts, resell it as a DIY kit. And so now I have another one. I think Justin has one, and then I think we sold about 10 of them to other people. So like,
nice.
There's a small little modding community now that we created because we can easily Clipperize older printers. So I totally encourage you to take an older printer and put Clipper on it. It's not easy, but man, it's super rewarding to take an older printer that was working well.
Definitely not a Gen 1 MakerBot replicator in a box. that we're going to be doing that with at some point.
Yeah.
It's missing a bunch of stuff, so we first have to get it running.
Mhm.
It's signed. We know it's signed
That's
by Bree. That's the one signature.
As much as
And
that's
I think
worth.
I think Matt confirmed another one, but there's 4 signatures on it total. We got it out of California. Mad Cat
That's awesome.
actually
Yeah.
got it and paid him to ship it to me and all that. So we're gonna
That would be fun.
we'll make a series on that when I am way more comfortable. So we are gonna be picking back up the Voron because it works. It's just not good. We're gonna be picking that back up. So the goal there is to do that and get it running again. So
That'd be great. I mean, a Trident is a great printer, especially when you have a sea of Bamboo printers, right? So, and I'm still on the make printers open source again kind of train.
should we? Oh God, we should do a red and white hat that says "Make printers
No,
open
please don't do
source"
that.
again.
But again,
We should
like,
not do that.
because the CMC printers were open source, I have all the CAD files to the Rostock Max, the Eris, the H2, the CMC Artemis.
So when stuff breaks, you can just
yeah.
go to another table and say, "Hey, I broke this part," or Southwest broke this part. Can you can you help the brother out?
That worked and it didn't work because there's actually the one on GitHub was actually an older version of the part I needed, so I had to reverse engineer it. But I can use it as references. But the backpack printers, the frames were all designed off of the CAD models from the GitHub, so I was able to use those dimensions without having to measure stuff manually or do weird 3D scanning stuff. But yeah, like. That's why. And also the stuff I had to do with batteries. If I want to go further than that, I can modify firmware or add macros. And being able to add macros to a printer is like something we should definitely be able to do.
You can use one of those big TreeTech macro pads too.
That's what I mean. The macro pads, or even for the Bamboo, you could do that too now with what is that called,
the Panda Touch. If Bamboo doesn't nuke it,
exactly.
There's still an issue where they have the ability to nuke it. Also, thank you to Zerno for the $1.99. Printer in a box sounds familiar. What's the count? 1. Oh.
Yeah, Zerno actually had a toy box.
Yeah.
So he had one, and we were playing with powering off a USB-C. So actually, the Eris and his toy box were actually powered off of USB Type-C because it was low enough power.
That's where I'm at. These backpack printers should run USB-C, right? Because you can just get a PD trigger board, right? Exactly, in fact, I don't. PD trigger boards are not
65 watt or 100 watt are common.
You can get
the problem is now the spec I think is technically 240 watt, but we talked about that with the positron. My thing is that you're still having to do weird conversions and kind of use somewhat proprietary stuff that you can't just. To me, it's like I'd rather just solder on a XT60 connector and plug it in, or run a barrel jacks aren't always rated for the current that you need.
No, they're generally not rated for it at all.
No, but like XT60s, which I've used a lot, XT60s are a great connector. XT30s, and then there's some other connector styles. I can go into crimping and connection and electronics all day long, but yeah, XT60s are pretty good. There was a Creality had a problem, but they were using under-spec ones for their beds, and they would burn up because they weren't done right and stuff like that. And also
reality problems.
Yeah, people, certain printers that were soldering their wire terminal wires.
Oh yeah, they were tinning them, and then they were
tinning their wires.
Over time,
not using square for rules, which I've seen more of now. So people are using square for rules, having frayed wires that can bust. I mean, even obviously Bamboo with the A1, not using proper spec cables. It
takes a lot to do it right.
Are dangerous.
Yeah. you can't mess around, especially obviously Bamboo is paying the price on this, right? Like the US Consumer Protection Services is now involved, and this is a multi-million-dollar problem that Bamboo had because they value engineered this product to be at a certain price point.
But they're not the first, and they're not going to be the last.
No, I think it's funny because a lot of people have entered this industry in the past 2 years. So they don't remember the house fires, the actual house fires that ANET caused with the A8. There were 7 total house fires, I believe, with 3 or 4 of them resulting in total losses of the home because of
Yeah.
these printers. Like, yes, Bamboo value engineered it, but a Bamboo printer, to my knowledge, has not burned a house down.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there.
Back to the ANET days, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also why I have an Unraid server, so that I can have all my backups, and then also sync them to cloud backups. So it's
Yep.
like, obviously, it can happen to anybody, and it can be even something as stupid as an appliance that isn't a 3D printer, right? So obviously it can happen, but that's why we have UL ratings. That's why we CE ratings,
And it's why that stuff's important.
Yes.
Companies, stop saying,
Using
oh,
their-
it doesn't need this. It does. And I get it. UL feels like
Yeah.
a racket. It's mostly because it is. But there's insurance behind this stuff that once it
Yeah.
becomes rated, you're protected now. And
Yep.
obviously check your local laws listings and understand what all of that means. But there's a reason that there are counties throughout the United States that require machinery to be UL listed. There's a reason for it. And it's not just because of money occurring behind, closed doors, allegedly, because there's no confirmation of any of that actually occurring.
Yeah, and don't daisy chain surge protectors. Surge
No.
protectors themselves, most surge protectors, what makes them a surge protector is they have an MOV, which is a component that will actually
metal oxide varistor.
Yes, it'll resist high voltage spikes basically, or blow the fuse basically as soon as it does encounter a high voltage spike to protect your electronics.
Yep.
So it's a sacrificial piece that it's kind of like a fuse, but it works with high voltages.
I've got a good story for MOVs and how they saved a project, but it was a client's project that I was not involved in, and they
you have
called me
and rainstorms.
This is exactly what happened. So this was an escape room.
Too.
You can look up the company. They sold it, but it's called Imagine Escape Games. They were ranked number 2 in the nation for escape rooms. I mean, and we assisted in every single one of their rooms in making custom 3D printed stuff. In one of their rooms, when the building had gotten struck by lightning, it messed with all the electronics and they no longer worked properly. They had a surge issue now. And the games would randomly either lock or unlock when they shouldn't, which is a bit of a problem, right? And one of the games, you had to hit targets, but you had to throw balls at these targets, so it swung and it hit a micro switch. Well, that micro switch, when it would hit, triggered a solenoid. When that solenoid would go off, it would trigger other things in the room accidentally. The EMF coming off of that solenoid would create issues. And yeah, it was MOVs. We just added MOVs everywhere, and it solved the problem.
Diodes, flyback diodes for solenoids as well too. If you have solenoids, will actually create their own EMF field when they collapse, and that actually causes issues too.
Yeah, we tried like wrapping things in tin foil because like I'm not an electrical engineer. I just got a phone call saying, "Hey, can you help with this?" I'm like, "All right, what the hell? Let's go. Let's have some fun." I should have the two of them on the husband and wife team that built that business. That'd be a really cool.
That'd be cool.
That'd be a cool guest to talk about like
escape room people are makers for sure.
Oh yeah, and now they live like 5 minutes from me, which is kind of cool. Fun. Yeah, they used to live like 30, but now they're in the next neighborhood over. So it's it is really cool. I haven't seen them in a minute. It's been a very long time since I've seen them, but yeah, it would certainly be a very, very cool guest to have on the show.
And speaking of escape rooms, similar to that is the Cookie Cat game that I created.
Yeah,
just to toot my own horn on that one.
That one was super freaking cool.
Yeah. So Nathan and Melissa, who are awesome, basically reached out to me to create a large version of the game Perfection, which is a lot of the little puzzle pieces that you have to fit on the board, and in a certain amount of time, if you don't get it in time, you'll pop up and throw the pieces in your face, theoretically. Well, of course, as soon as he came up with the idea, I was brainstorming with him. I was like, well, springs. So he wanted to do springs originally. I'm like, I know from experience that springs are, first of all, you don't want to have sprung anything.
Yeah,
has
it can be quite
a trigger.
Yep.
And on top of that, your sear, whatever your trigger mechanism has, has to have a lot of weight underneath. So it's a lot of friction. So you have to have something with a lot of torque to be able to release the sear and pop up, right? And then on top of that, you also have to be able
Yeah,
to
you
push
have to
down with the same
reset it.
amount of force. Yes.
Yeah.
So from my previous experience with pneumatics, I was like, I think this would be the quickest, easiest way to do it and make it resettable. And we can control the amount of power and flow rate and all that stuff like that. So again, pneumatics, Amazon, super cheap. You can get all pneumatic stuff, pneumatic tubing, fittings, push to connect fittings, which is what we use for
Yeah, it's Bowden
couplers.
Yep.
Essentially. But they can all pretty much handle pressure. They're easy to work with, easy to cut. Pneumatics are relatively easy, but they're deceptively hard because you are balancing flow rate and pressure and all kinds of stuff. So
Yep.
And you need a power source, which is the loud compressors, which now are a lot quieter. You can
Oh,
get quiet
dude, those quiet compressors. If
Yeah.
you have an air compressor at home and you don't have a quiet compressor, do yourself a favor and add that to a wish list. If you're watching or listening to the show, you're a maker, which means you are statistically very difficult to get gifts for. Quiet air compressor, they're like sub $300. I found one on sale for
about 200 is what mine
freaking
was.
bucks.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
And
you don't really need more
so
than
nice.
like 4 to 8 gallons is good enough for
Mhm.
most things. If you're using a power tool, obviously you want to do the bigger the tank, the better, basically, because you have a bigger reserve without having to. They don't like being run at 100% duty cycle.
No, they get pretty
I've-
angry at that. You definitely don't have to add a bunch of fans to them to keep them from overheating.
Yep, I've done that too.
I don't know this.
Yeah, I have. It's also hot in your garage too, but
it is.
I'm using one as a air assist. I have a solenoid valve,
Me too.
so that on light burn you tell it, I want to have my air assist here when you're cutting, and you don't really need it as much when you're etching. So, but basically, you want a good amount of pressure to force the air in the nozzle to accelerate the burn, which makes a cleaner cut.
Yep.
So I that was one of my first mods when I got my laser cutter. Was to get a quiet compressor, because I was living in an apartment at the time, so I was running my laser cutter in an apartment.
You need something quiet for
totally
sure.
Safe. And having a compressor that will definitely vibrate through the floor. So a quiet compressor was good enough, and actually nobody really complained about it. So that was probably the loudest thing I've ever had in an apartment. But in my basement, it's great. I can carry. Actually, what's cool is it's on wheels. I can just carry it to where I need air and
nice
hook it up. So yeah, definitely quiet compressor. But back to the cookie head thing. So they brought up this game. I worked in Fusion trying to basically replicate the game, but we made our own spin on it. So Melissa came up with the shapes, the unique shapes, which were really cool. If you ever watched the footage of people trying to assemble it, we made some really complex shapes. And so yeah, basically the whole thing was designed in Fusion. I designed it for CNC plywood. So at the Makerspace, we have a big CNC. I milled it out of plywood. And I use pocket hole screws and table saws. So it's a traditional wood cabinet.
Pocket holes.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Oh, they're so good.
So it's probably my favorite thing is the Craig jig.
I have the cheaper Craig jig, but I have
the cheaper one, the handheld one, the little one that clips to the edge. Yeah.
Not like the nice one that's got the jig. No. I gotta hold it and then use the drill. But you know what? They're so worth it. It's not even funny. They're so worth it. Pocket holes are amazing.
Yeah. Besides the table saw, it's really not that hard. It's not hard, but it's building a cabinet is really satisfying with plywood. It's totally doable. You can make speakers, boxes. You can make crates for storage. You can make shelves. I mean, you can do so much with just 3/4 inch plywood. So this whole cabinet was made that way, and then I made it so that I could also access the parts. So I had threaded inserts with M6 bolts, so that which I already had. So you could take the top part and the bottom part off of each other. And then there's the play area, which was I actually had to make it out of 1/2 inch plywood to make it lighter. I was trying to make it as light and stiff as possible, so I had to actually add bracing and everything. And it's two 50 millimeter diameter pistons. So a lot of displacement. And those two pistons, I actually had to drill out the orifices because they were too restrictive, because I wanted them to pop really quickly. So I opened up the orifices, kind of ported it, and then it's just a 5-way solenoid valve. I originally was going to actually have it like air up and down, but I actually made it so it's a one-way piston, so it only pops up, and then I had springs that actually allow it to return back down.
Okay.
So it actually, and that allowed it to go faster. Basically, I didn't restrict the exhaust ports. So I mean, I'm gonna work on a video. I do want to actually show the whole build process. It's gonna be really cool. But the big thing is that I printed, I made my own switch to turn off and on the game. The knob is actually just a potentiometer, and then everything is going to a Raspberry Pi Pico as my timer, my game timer.
Mm-hmm.
It also allowed me to add RGB LEDs, so I have programmable LEDs on the strip. Everything again was powered off of a Raspberry Pi Pico, a power supply, and some relays. So really simple automation control. And relays are super cheap on Amazon. You can get the Pi Pico, you can get power supplies really cheap. Probably no more than $50 worth of electronics and components to build that game. On top of that, we I actually had the whole game MicroPython. I actually wrote with ChatGPT. Basically, just I asked it, "Hey, make a timer program that uses this input and this input."
Mm-hmm.
Spit out a whole bunch of code. Worked really well. So really quick development, but a lot of it was just testing the pneumatics, making sure everything fit together,
It got
building
so
the
many
cage.
people. It looked so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
painting was a big part of it because obviously that color scheme.
Yeah.
I matched it off their unicorn color
Okay.
scheme, which is the blue, purple, and pink. So I was in the Home Depot trying to color match colors
Bringing like a
to the
spool with you to
picture.
find the color.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
should have done that, but and then also the timer. Actually, you could hear the ticking sound. I wanted something that sounded like the original game, where it has a
Yeah.
kind of has an escapement in it you can hear. So I took a wrench, literally took a wrench, and made an adapter so I could have a DC motor that would just spin the gear wrench, and then
Oh, you're using like the clicky sound of a ratchet.
yeah, I have a ratchet. So I took a ratchet and then basically zip tied it and screwed it into the box, and so the box actually resonates the ratcheting
Hey,
mechanism.
what the
So
hell? If it's jank and it
super
works,
simple.
it's not jank. I mean, that is the
Yeah,
perfect example of Occam's razor. The simplest solution is often the
yeah.
best. That's
And
great.
that's a lot of it. The pneumatics were simple. I mean, and that's the kind of troubleshooting and problem solving I love doing, is
Yeah.
building stuff that's like it's highly effective, like LED signs, stuff that's like the simplest thing that looks the best, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of like the backpack printer. It's like the battery is just batteries with I need diodes and fees, like, and it's just a printer on the backpack. It's something that you can show off that looks cool on camera, like stuff that looks good on camera, like props. I love building props and stuff like that, but it's stuff that looks good on camera that's actually relatively simple, but you just build it in a way that looks good on camera, and for a 2-day event, and you don't really doesn't
Nice.
need to actually be a useful thing. Obviously, most of the stuff on TV is not useful. You see the YouTubers, they build this like crazy contraption for YouTube, and
And
then
it
like
doesn't need to be.
it never gets used after that.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the fun kind of fabrication, where you could just build crazy projects and then like they sit on a shelf not being used. But I can actually use my Delta printer. It's
They're
actually probably
useful
one of my
anytime you want.
it's one of my better printers, actually, is the backpack printer. So
That's great.
um
I love it.
yeah,
I love it. Well,
yeah.
Mitch, is there anything that you want to like leave the folks at home with? Any like advice or anything like that that you'd like to leave them with, those that might be wanting to build a backpack printer?
Uh have a good back. That's
All right. I'm already out. Sorry.
okay. Yeah. A lot of people that actually don't even want to wear it because they know it's not comfortable. No matter what I do, I'm on my feet the whole event. My feet hurt most of the time. Uh, my back's actually pretty good because I'm pretty sure I don't have much back to ruin. But uh, you know, honestly, just do it. I would love to see more backpack printers. I think there's actually a few people I've talked to who are talking about it or planning on doing it. So like, I mean, I don't really care if people start doing it in marketing, because it's a simple, great solution, and I don't own backpack printers, right? So, but it what it does to me is it allows me to figure out like what we're capable of doing with 3D
Mm-hmm.
printers besides just desktop 3D printers. You get out of the box and start printing. Like,
Right.
what can we do? Can we actually use this for practical purposes? Probably not much, but like,
No.
if you Morley Kurt is one of the ones I would recommend watching. He's done videos where he's taken his bamboo printer on a wheelbarrow out to the forest and actually tried to survive using 3D printed parts. And he actually
Weird,
has
but
his,
okay.
yeah, he has his printer in his van, and he's made a lot of van modifications and stuff, organization and stuff like that. So Morley Kurt's really cool. I haven't really met him. I talked to him on Twitter. He's one of the people I would recommend watching for like if you're interested in practical use cases of portable printing. Again, the positron, we're working on that. I think that has a lot of potential to be able to take a printer to work or to a field or hotel room or something, and actually just have a printer with you. Just having a printer with you that you can use pretty much anywhere you have power.
Portability is quite the game these days, it seems.
Yeah, and on top of that, power usage. So again, we're talking about UPSs. Just
Yep.
Not everybody has reliable power, and so having battery backup, some alternative way to run a printer. People that want to run off of the grid can run off of solar. Like 3D printers don't need as much power as we use because PLA is pretty resilient, and you can run cold beds, or we can figure. I was even looking at chemical alternatives to heat beds, right? Like ways that we could actually use maybe gas power if you're outdoors to heat a bed, a print bed, and so that all you need is the heater for the hot end and the stepper motor. So you could technically run a solar printer. There's plenty of options. The battery technology has gotten so much better. You can run it off of car batteries, or you can run it off of a car that has an alternator. It's basically a generator, or you can do like the Jackery style, thing. So, kind of basically taking the gimmick that I've kind of been playing with and just like finding more practical uses in the future and seeing other people attempt it. And then I'll be, if like somebody like Ludwig or Mr. Beast or somebody like some bigger
Yeah,
YouTuber.
Mr. Beast hit him up.
Yeah. If you want somebody in your next video that has to survive on an island for $1 million, I'll bring my backpack printer and print practical ways to survive. I guess, I don't know.
Dude, I am so freaking here for it. I'm so here for it. We did close the giveaway, so that's
Cool.
That's done. I actually let it run until just a second ago.
Wow, that's a long.
It looks like everybody figured out. Here's what's really cool. So with Google Forms, it lets me see a lot of things. 18% of you chose, for the purpose of validating who you are, please enter a number. Any number. If there are questions on who you are, I will ask you the number. 18% of you chose the number 6.
Really, 6?
Yep. 18% of people chose the number 6. 12.5% chose the number 4. We're gonna draw 5 names here, and you better be in those comments on YouTube. Cause yeah, otherwise no chance. We got Geek Toy Box as number 1. That's Dom.
Oh,
I
nice.
know who that is.
Yeah.
So
hey,
let me find him on here.
Dom is definitely deserving. He has helped everybody at every event.
Yep.
If you've met him.
Now there's
a great
Dom.
guy.
So Dom, just DM me on Discord and we'll get all that taken care of. Let's get number 2. Well, he better be in the damn comments. He should be. I swear to God if he's not in there. Dom, you better say something. I know who you are. You better say something.
It's too early.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give it to Dom, but where's Dom? Dom better be in the comments. Okay, all right, there he is. Geek Toy Box, we got him. We got him. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't check. We've got. I'm gonna get this probably wrong. Guria Girl Fitness. That's number 2. Are you in the chat? Are you in the chat?
I think I saw them.
I saw them earlier, but I don't know if they're still here. So if they're still here, great. Give them about 30 seconds or so. All right, we got him.
Awesome.
Either DM me on Discord. I'm just at 3D Musketeers on Discord, or on Twitter at 3D_Musketeers, because for some reason I don't own the regular one there. But yeah, or you can just email me too. It's just info@3dmusketeers.com. We'll get that sorted. Let's do number 3 here. Well, I don't know if he should get this because he was being mean to me earlier, but Zerno
Oh,
wins. We
there you
got
go.
Zerno as well.
Zerno had a whole bunch of swatches last time I was talking to him, so maybe that would be a good way to expand that
I'm just
swatch
tagging
library.
everybody so they see it.
Yeah.
Zerno, are you there? Are you there, Zerno? Are you
Yep.
there? Okay, awesome. All right. Thomas says hashtag rigged.
It's not rigged when you have like 50, 60
There's
people
only
on.
there was only like, how many entries did we get?
Not
32
enough.
responses. Yeah.
I mean, there you go. You sneeze, you lose. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, that's the way she goes. It's the way she goes. Um Chris H. Chris H, are you in there? Chris H. I don't see. So I'm trying to tag a Chris H, and I am not able to tag a Chris H. Interesting.
Chris H, I didn't see him earlier.
I'm not able to tag a Chris H. I'm also realizing I should probably edit this out for the audio only recording. All right, I don't see Chris, unfortunately, so we're going to move on. Going to do another one here.
Oh, wait. They're on here.
Is that Chris H?
Yep.
Okay, fine. All right, you win. All right. Yeah, he wasn't there when I went to tag him earlier. All right, so we got Chris H.
So that's 4. We got one more.
Let me grab him. Well, this is harder than I expected it to be. There we go.
Yeah.
Fine. Going through the list is the complicated thing. Okay.
Making sure that people get contacted too.
David Connor Shover, you there, buddy? Oh, yep, he's there. I can he's not replying for himself, but I can see that he's there. So David Connor Shover, you sir win. You guys just reach out to me via DM on Discord or Twitter. We'll get it sorted. If I don't hear back from you, I have your emails. I'll just email you. But yeah, huge thanks to Printed Solid. That is the 5 winners. Awesome. So stay tuned. We're going to start doing filament giveaways. So you better be watching, guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. This has been episode 194 with Mitch 3D, the backpack printing dude, who dropped some knowledge bombs, dude. You absolutely dropped some knowledge bombs. So thanks for hanging out.
Available on social media, and just message me if you have any questions.
Yep. Links to Mitch are in that description, so go follow him on... Well, where's the best place for people to follow you? Where do you want people to follow you?
Unfortunately, Twitter right now is probably the best place. The Mitch22. I'm on all the Discord. Probably every Discord server that you are on, I'm probably on.
Yeah, Mitch is in a lot of Discord servers.
The Mitch22. Just search that, and then Mitch3D.com, the newly appointed website that has all my contact information. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, all right, peeps. We're gonna send you over to Steve Builds. So let's go right over to Steve.
Oh.
And
what's he building?
We will see you all later. Have a good one. Stay safe. I was gonna almost end this stream without doing my outro. Gosh, what a professional. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, Mitch, what do I say?
Keep making awesome.
He got it! Mitch got it! Oh, we'll see you all later.
Almost
Take
like
care.
I watched your stuff. Yeah.